At the beginning of the year, the same thing happens. A wave of videos goes viral claiming that air travel is about to change forever. New rules, new restrictions, and supposedly new carry-on size limits. These videos rack up millions of views, and every year I get flooded with comments asking me to clarify what's real and what isn't when it comes to carry-on luggage. So let me be very clear from the start. There are no major carry-on changes in 2026. And there is no global standard size being introduced, and there is no universal carry-on rule coming into effect. A lot of the videos you've seen about this content, they're produced by AI channels, and they're full of misinformation. And after watching several of them, the most frustrating part is that most of these so-called changes aren't even new at all. Many of them have been in place for years. So in this video, I'm breaking down what's real, what's misleading, and what you really truly need to know to travel confidently with the carry-on in 2026. So first up, there is no new global standard size for carry-ons. Some airlines adjusted their sizes in 2025, and some might change theirs in 2026, but the important thing to remember is that there is no new one-size bag allowance. This is false information. The best thing you can do to stay up to date is always check the size from the airline or airlines you'll be flying from. That being said, many regions and airlines tend to have similar size limits. So to make things a little easier, I've put together a spreadsheet with 75 of the most popular airlines and grouped them together based on their carry-on size allowance. I've also researched and listed out which carry-ons will fit as per their sizes. And I finally put together a quick carry-on compliance checker so you can input your bag's dimensions to see where it'll fit. And on there, I also have a few extra tips to help you understand how carry-on sizing actually works once you're at the airport. Both spreadsheets are free. There's no need to sign up for an email list to get them, although I do have a great email newsletter too if you find any value from these spreadsheets or from this video. It's a small, completely free thing that you can do to help support me. Another piece of misinformation is that the way the airlines measure their carry-ons is changing. I've seen videos say that they are now including the handles and the wheels in the overall size. This has always been the case. This is nothing new. This is not a change. It has been this way for years. That's why I always recommend a carry-on that has flat handles compared to bulky ones that stick out. Of course, at any time, there could be changes to the level of enforcement individuals' airline decide to apply, but the reality is that this usually varies by airport and by individual flights, even within the same airline. There is one caveat here, and that is that some airlines at some airports are now using electronic or automated carry-on bag sizers. So instead of the physical bin or box, there's now a device that uses lasers to precisely measure luggage dimensions. That means no longer being allowed to stuff or squish your bag into the sizer to make it fit. However, there's an easy way to get around this. These electronic sizers are only at the check-in counter, not at the gate, meaning they're only found pre-security. So if you're not checking a bag and only flying with a carry-on, you can check in for your flight online, which will issue your boarding pass electronically. This means when you get to the airport, you can head straight through to the security line. And even better news is that so far, I only know that these exist at the Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver international airports. And I can't find which US airports or even European airports are using these automated baggage sizers. So if you have personally seen or had to use one of these at an airport, please let me know in the comments below so I can investigate further. And in fact, some airlines are even doing away with their bag sizers at airports altogether. In October 2025, American Airlines started removing their bag sizers from airport gates to speed up boarding. The carry-on size allowance is still the same, but gate agents will now do more of a quick visual check, only asking passengers to gate check bags that are obviously too large to fit overhead. And the news gets better. If you do have to place your bag in an automated carry-on baggage sizer, you might still get a pass anyway. Air Canada, for example, mentions on their website that any non-compliant baggage will be assessed and are subject to applicable baggage fees. The key word here is subject. So this doesn't mean if your bag is slightly oversized, it will automatically be charged or checked. It's still subject to the agent working. So if it's slightly too full, or you can pull something out, or maybe it's 3 centimeters too tall, as long as you're a nice person, you might be able to ask them if they'll let you through. So not only are carry-on sizes not shrinking, some airlines don't even require you to size your bag in the first place. So please, no need to stress. Another thing that really helps keep travel stress-free is simplifying the small stuff. One of the easiest places to overpack is power, between different outlets, bulky adapters, and trying to charge everything that you brought. So instead of packing multiple adapters, now I just pack one. This is the new Air 40-watt adapter from Epica, and a big thank you to Epica for sponsoring this video. Epica is already known for making some of the best-selling, top-rated universal travel adapters out there, and the Air 40-watt is a more refined next-generation version built on that foundation. It's ultra compact, about 40% slimmer than most adapters. Bulkier adapters tend to wobble or fall out of loose outlets, but this slimmer shape sits flush and stays secure. It also works great on airplanes because if one outlet is worn out, you can easily switch to another outlet type. For example, most North American aircraft actually have universal outlets, so using the UK plug often gives you a tighter, more secure fit. And if you're headed on a trip moving through multiple countries, like I will be this year, this replaces everything. It's compatible in over 200 countries and regions. Even with the compact size, it delivers 40 watts of power and supports fast charging. The 5-in-1 design means I can charge up to 5 devices at once, like my phone, laptop, smartwatch, camera batteries, and anything else, all from a single outlet, without carrying extra chargers. I brought this to places like Mexico and Japan where I didn't need an adapter at all because it still works great as my main charging station. And at home, it just stays plugged in at my desk, and when it's time to travel, I just grab it and go. And if you travel for work or want a higher power setup, there's also the Pulse Duo 65 watt. This is the upgraded option, improved directly from user feedback, and it's got broader plug support on the front, a side AC port for easier access, and enough power to charge 13-inch and 14-inch laptops. For business trips especially, pairing the Air 40 with the Pulse Duo gives you a clean, efficient power setup that keeps everything organized without adding bulk. Just a quick note though, neither of these are voltage converters. They're universal travel adapters designed for dual voltage devices like phones, laptops, and cameras. Check out my links in the description and in the first comment for the Epica Air 40-watt adapter and the Pulse Duo 65 watt. My links always get you the best price available. In other fake news, personal items are not getting smaller across the board. Again, check with your airlines as there is no one-size-fits-all. There are many airlines that have similar dimensions, but generally speaking, the sizing varies a lot. In my experience, this is the area most loosely enforced when it comes to luggage and boarding the plane, with a caveat. When I review luggage, when possible, I always like to test airline sizer bins. Personal item sizers are harder to find than the ones for carry-ons. And that's because this is an area that is very loosely enforced. I've used many bags that fit under the seat just fine, even though they don't always fit in the sizer. And this is usually only an issue if you're flying on an ultra low-cost, no-frills, cheap airline, or if you buy the ultra-basic lowest fare that exists that only allows you to fly with a personal item. On most major airlines, at least in North America and Europe, if they do bring out the sizers to the gate, it's to size your carry-on, not your personal item, and it's because you're in one of the last boarding zones. So my pro tip for you here is if you're nervous about being called out, don't buy a ticket that puts you in the last boarding zone, and remember that bags are like clothes. Darker clothes are slimming. A stuffed black bag is barely noticeable, whereas a stuffed lighter color bag is going to be easier to spot in a crowd. Next, it's important to understand who actually looks at and measures your carry-on luggage. It's not TSA or airport security. These people are looking for what's in your bag for security purposes. They're scanning for anything dangerous that could be brought on board. Technically speaking, they don't care how big your bags are or how many you have. Obviously, if you try to place a checked size suitcase onto the x-ray belt, they're gonna flag it because that's not going to be anywhere close to fitting. But you can have a roller carry-on, a personal item bag, a smaller handbag, a jacket, and a tin of cookies. That's allowed, because they make you spread everything out onto multiple different bins anyway to go through the scanners, so they can easily see what you're bringing on board. The difference is when you get to your gate to board the plane. There are gate agents there setting up to board passengers for that flight. So as long as you can consolidate all of your items into 2 total bags, meaning one that fits in the overhead bin and one that clearly obviously would fit under the seat. Then you will have no trouble boarding the plane. If you need more clarification about how this works, I have a full video tutorial about my airport bag system. Weight limits have always been part of carry-on allowance. Again, there's nothing that is changing regarding this, and I haven't seen a particular airline announce that they are becoming more strict with enforcing weight allowances. The best thing that you can do is pack light and make sure your carry-on is lightweight. If you need an ultra-light roller carry-on, try the Antler Soft Side or the Bricks X Travel Spinner. I'm not really a backpack traveler, so these are great options when you need wheels and something lighter than the more popular options. The next best thing you can do is pack less. I've got multiple videos on how to do that, but my 2 biggest tips for dealing with strict weight allowance would be these. Number 1 is to pack as much merino wool clothing as you can, because it's generally lightweight, it doesn't hold odors, and so you can re-wear clothing multiple times before needing to wash it. So you need fewer clothing items overall. And when you eventually do need to wash, it dries quickly. I'll leave a few links to some merino wool pieces that I love in the comments. And number 2 is to buy your toiletries at your destination. Because I find after clothing, this can be the second heaviest part of your packing, especially if your trip is on the longer side. And if you can't buy your toiletries, then challenge yourself to see how much you actually truly need. You'd be surprised about how much product you really only use in a week or 2. I'm working on an updated toiletries video because my last one is one of my most viewed videos, but I did it a couple of years ago, so it's time for a bit of an update as I've learned and tested out a few new things. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Speaking of toiletries, sometimes this is the most difficult and confusing part about traveling carry-on only, is the amount of liquids you're allowed to bring. This is actually an area where we've seen the most changes in and probably will see more throughout the year. Many airports still restrict you to 1 clear quart size or liter size bag with liquid containers inside that bag, no larger than 100 milliliters or 3.4 ounces. Some airports no longer require you to take those liquids out of your bag to be scanned. With upgraded scanners at a lot of airports now, they're strong enough to see through your carry-on. However, if you have a connecting flight, it's possible you may need to go through security again, and that airport might have different scanners and procedures and may require you to remove your liquids bag. So as a standard rule of thumb, anytime I travel by air, I always pack my liquids bag somewhere easily accessible. Okay, this isn't new for 2026, but it bears repeating if you haven't flown in the last year. Power banks. They are a very popular travel essential. Personally, I never travel without one, but in 2025, we saw a lot of changes in how they need to be packed. A power bank cannot be in your carry-on bag that goes into the overhead bin. It needs to be with you under the seat so that you can easily retrieve it if something goes wrong. And to make sure you're compliant, your power bank should be 10,000 milliamp hours or less. To make it easy, check the link in the video description for the power bank that I use. A new trend in luggage I'm seeing is that some suitcases are now being sold with built-in power banks. July Luggage is an example of this. They sell some bags with ejectable batteries. To me, this just makes the suitcase unnecessarily heavy, and I think a separate power bank is just more versatile. July makes bags without the power banks built in, and those are great options. But if you're currently shopping for a new carry-on, having the built-in power bank is a feature I would just avoid. And for one final tip to help with your carry-on travels in 2026, I've linked my carry-on compliance checker and airline sizing spreadsheets in the description below so you can quickly see where your bag will actually fit. It's one of the most practical tools I put together if you want to travel with confidence to be a true carry-on queen or king. To make sure you're up to date on the latest real travel news and changes, sign up for my free newsletter where I also share practical travel tips, my thoughts on new gear, and extra bits that don't make it onto YouTube. Plus, I have a few more giveaways planned throughout the year. And don't forget to find the links to the Epica travel adapters in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.